You guys keep telling me you love the price performance stuff, and right here I've got yet another yes delivery for you guys on the desk. Let's take a look what we've got here. And this is a $170 i7 rig that we picked up with 8 gigabytes of RAM, 2 terabyte hard drive. Now it has one of the ugliest cases I have seen in the history of computing, as well as having an absolute garbage power supply on it. So we're gonna pull that apart very soon, strip it down, and then also prep the rest of these parts. Because what we got here is a power supply. It's just a pretty generic 600 watt case-com power supply. It does work pretty well, especially for a low powered build, which we kind of got here on the desk. Then we've also got an RX 470, which I picked up for 70 Aussie dollars, but we're gonna reflash this to an RX 570. And then we've also got a 60 gigabyte SSD to throw in there to help with the boot speeds. And we got this for 10 Aussie dollars. So far we have 280 Aussie dollars. I'll put all the USD pricing up there for you too. And then we've got an extra $2 in LED strips, but we're still gonna go pick up another case, which I've lined up for 30 Aussie dollars. But before we do that, we'll strip this thing apart and then get all the parts on the table ready for a Tech Yes cleanse. Also guys, I recently got this tool here. It's a electric screwdriver, but it also turns into an electric driver too. But I'm a bit conflicted because I don't know if I should be using this or if I should be using a Swiss Army knife. Let us know in the comments below. I mean, this one's also got a torch on it as well, and even one on the bottom. So we've got all the parts laid out here on the table except for the case. We're gonna go pick that up now. I still have to clean down all these parts, make them look like brand new, but I do wanna go pick up that case before it gets dark. It's $30 Aussie dollars, which is like 20 USD. It looks pretty good. I haven't seen it in person yet, but I'm hoping it'll come through for this build. Let's go get it. So we just got back now, and this case is really big. I think it's the full-sized ATX cases, but even then, it just looks incredible. I mean, look at this thing. You got 2 fans included at the side here, bringing air in here. Mesh front panel, even got a handle up the top here to carry this around to parties and whatever. And the best thing is, at the side here, you've got a clear side panel, so we're gonna be able to put all the parts in after we give them some Tech Yes loving, and then we're gonna put some LEDs in, and it's all gonna shine through just beautiful. I can already picture this. It's just gonna be not just like price performance, but it's gonna be looking incredible too. So let's start cleaning all these parts up and then get ready for the build. So we now cleaned out all these parts right here. Everything is looking brand spanking new. One quick thing we have to do though is quickly clean down just the heatsink contact areas here, just to get the multi-purpose spray off so there's no oil when we put down the thermal paste, and then we'll be good to go. We're gonna start building this thing. Also, one thing I did notice to report on for you guys, if you're in America, don't use the oil-based WD-40. I got some in Australia here, and it is indeed very thick and oily. If you're in Australia too, this stuff is just absolutely amazing. The multi-purpose spray, it just goes on, gives it a nice, real thin film. Looks amazing, it's not sticky at all. It's such a good spray to work with, but let's start rocking this build. And here's the build here. It is complete. It is looking schmick. We got those two RGB LED strips inside, giving it some bling. We've also got that RX 47 is gonna get flashed in the morning. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna crash out now because it's pretty late, and then I'm gonna wake up and we're gonna start installing Windows and set all this up and then install some games and see how well this beast performs. So it's now time to install Windows, but one funny thing about this case is that it's got a Windows 10 OEM license key written on the back of the actual case itself. But in this build, we won't need a Windows 10 license because we've already got a Windows 10 Pro license that was pre-installed with this motherboard in here when I bought the build off the previous person. However, if you guys don't have Windows 10 activated or you need a Windows 10 Pro license, then today's video sponsor SCD Keys have you covered. For as little as 12 USD using the coupon code TYCSK, you can get 12% off and get a single end user license. This is the legit stuff, and then activate it and have no problems. I've used these keys myself and never had one gone bad. So what are you waiting for? Links in the description below. Use that coupon code and save money today. Let's get back to the build. So we've installed Windows and now we're copying the games across, so we're gonna have to wait for that to get done. But one thing I'd always do with a gaming PC, something that's really quick and easy, is install Unigine Heaven, install Prime 95, and also MSI Afterburner. These three programs are going to quickly let you know if your system is stable. It's also going to give you, in the case of MSI Afterburner, temperature readouts. So let's open these up and see what's going on. So now we're running Prime 95, testing out the CPU. I usually leave that running for a good hour just to test the system memory as well and make sure nothing's crashing, everything's running smoothly. But while we're doing that, we try to open up Unigine Heaven just to get the benchmark running for the graphics card. However, it crashed out with this RX 470. And now Windows is telling me that this is not recognized. It's actually stopped the device with an error code 43 on its current VBIOS. So what we're gonna do now is use ATI Flash to actually flash this into an RX 570 so we can try and get it working for gaming. I actually have to remember the exact commands to force flash this, So I figured this out. Now I'm going to close Prime 95 for this, just because you don't want your computer crashing or even risking a crash while you are flashing a BIOS. It's just going to save you a lot of time and hassle. So we're going to run this as administrator again, and then we're going to type in cd /. That'll bring us back to the main command prompt here, cd spacebar ATI flash. That will open up our folder, and then we type in ATI flash /I, and now this will let us know what adapter number our graphics card is. So it's 0. So now we have to type in ATI flash and then type in /P, or sorry, -P, 0, that will select the graphics card, then -F for force flash, and then RX 570 BIOS. And that should work. That should now make this an RX 570. And fingers crossed, just gotta take a little bit of time. And there we go. It's ready to become an RX 570. So we just got to restart the system, and then let's check it out. So we've come into a little bit of a problem in that this, after we flashed it, it works on the PC over there to test it out, but it doesn't now work on this motherboard. So I believe it could be there's secure boot enabled or a lack of UEFI support on boot. And so we're going to try and update the BIOS now and see if we can fix it. Otherwise, we're going to have to replace this whole motherboard. So now we tried updating the BIOS. We had to use 0048 apparently to get it to work, but then we tried updating from the in-BIOS tool. It told us to go to Windows. We used the Windows update and then it just bricked. So this motherboard's essentially toast. I think it's for good reason anyway. Time to get rid of this garbage out of the system and change the motherboard over to something a little bit better. And this should work absolutely fine. Let's change that over. Of course, it's gonna add to the build cost, unfortunately, but as we said just before, it's for the better. So this motherboard did fix the trick there. Everything is working absolutely fine. The RX 570 is showing up now. Unfortunately, Windows is now not activated because this motherboard wasn't activated. But it's time to install some games and finally get everything up and running properly. We'll talk about that Intel motherboard a bit later in the video, but let's get these games installed and see how this thing performs. So after all the hassles, we finally got this PC running, and the total cost came out to about 355 Aussie dollars, or if you're in the US, 255 US dollars. Now, the biggest thing that added to the cost of this build was this motherboard. It was just so tedious as well. And man, I don't know what happened here. Like, this is one of those things where Intel really did a bad job on this board in particular. I mean, why implement a BIOS update tool when you force people to go to Windows and update the BIOS in Windows? And everybody knows with motherboard BIOS updates, you generally don't want to do them in Windows because it has the highest chance of bricking a motherboard. And in this case, we went to do it, it restarted the machine, and then as it was restarting, it just froze. So then after that, the motherboard just didn't work anymore. So I'm gonna save this board for an episode of Can Yes Fix It? So stay tuned for that. I mean, at the moment, it's just too much time to try to get this thing to work, especially all the hassles that we had trying to get it to work in the meantime, where I thought my RX 570 wouldn't have worked, but I found out, I was like, no, because it worked on the other computer, and then it didn't work on this. I was like, okay, there must be some sort of secure boot and not an option to enable compatibility support module, CSM. So that sucks. That board ended up wasting a lot of time, and it also added another $39 US onto the bill, because that's what you can get one of these H61 gigabyte boards for. And also we had to then install Windows 10 Pro on it, so that was another 12 USD. So that pretty much added $51 US to the build that we shouldn't have had to have added if Intel had just done their BIOS updates right. That was a bit annoying. It really sort of blew the budget out a little bit. I mean, it's still a good budget build at the price. If we look at those gaming figures, they're looking really good. I mean, the latest Shadows of the Tomb Raider, even on high at 1080p settings, still getting around 54 average FPS. And then we moved on to some of those benchmarks like Heaven. We're getting a really good score, 2,400 points. And then 3D Mark Firestrike gives you guys a good score on how the GPU and the CPU perform, where the GPU is getting over 13,000 points, CPU is getting over 8,000 points on the physics. And then moving through to a game like Hitman, 1080p high settings was getting a little over average of 90 FPS, but for some reason MSI Afterburner just wouldn't accept the benchmark numbers, and so I couldn't accurately get you guys an average FPS figure, but the 0.1% and 1% lows were very accurate. So this game was running really smooth on this PC, which of course is just awesome since it's one of those latest and greatest titles. And then of course, what about Dota 2, CSGO, Fortnite, and all those other competitive multiplayer titles? Well, we booted up Dota 2 and that was running absolutely fine at 1080p. You're not gonna have a problem playing any competitive multiplayer titles on this PC, and for the budget, it's gonna do a really good job giving you some smooth gameplay. But one thing about that i7-2600, even with 8 gigabytes of RAM, it's still a great little combo, even for 2019, especially if you're on a budget. Just be careful of some of these older motherboards. They may give you headaches like we saw here today. And then we move over to the case and we had this CM Storm Trooper. This thing has a handle on it. We whacked in 2 red LED strips, only added a little bit to the price of the build. And this thing is just massive. It's got 2 fans on the side and a big 20cm fan at the top. So things are gonna stay very cool in this case. And especially for the price we paid, 30 Aussie dollars or around 22 US dollars. I think it was a good bargain, but what do you guys think? Let us know in the comment section below what you think of this massive case. Do you think it's pretty cool? I mean, it's got some good cable management options in there, but one thing that I would have liked to have done differently in this build in particular would be to change to a power supply with some black cables. I think that really would have made this build complete. I definitely noticed the ketchup and mustard standing out a lot more in this build for some reason. I don't know what it is. But of course, if we did that, that would have added to the cost of the build even more, since power supplies with those black cables generally cost more than the ketchup and mustard kind. But the good thing was the RX 470 did flash successfully to the RX 570, and that even works with a 6-pin only. So if you guys want to test that out on RX 400 or 500 series cards, you can get away with just using a single 6-pin if it has only one 8-pin connector. Anyway guys, that's about it for this budget build. If you enjoyed this one, especially with all the twists and turns, then be sure to hit that like button. Also, if you want to check out stuff like this before it even hits YouTube, be sure to check us out on Instagram, Tech Yes City. And also, if you want to check out the videos the moment they hit YouTube, then be sure to subscribe with that notification bell turned on. Also, if you want a cheap Windows 10 key, the Pro version, like we used in today's video, single end user license, be sure to check out today's video sponsor, SCD Keys, and I'll catch you in the next one very soon. Peace out for now. Bye.